Welcome to the Wealth BuildHERS podcast, the women entrepreneurs' home for building successful businesses that generate passive income. You have entered a judgment-free zone, so give yourself permission to shake off all the things you haven't done, because your journey to owning a thriving business you love starts right now.
We are with Camille Davis. Camille, how are you, ma'am?
Hi, I'm great. And I'm so excited to be here. So excited to have met Renee. Renee, you are there was something that drew me to you from the very beginning. And I just feel like this was just meant to be. So I'm excited to be here today.
Me too. I feel like it was meant to be as well. Tell us a little bit about your real estate investing career. Like, how did you get started with all of this?
Yes. I don't know how long we want to make this story, but I was working at MD Anderson Cancer Hospital. I was a nurse and I ended up getting pregnant with our first child. And I was on maternity leave and I knew that I probably wouldn't go back. I knew I was just going to stay home with my child. But I didn't let them know that. I was just on the maternity leave, working from home. And he actually offered me another position. And this was like my dream position. I was like, it was social work. I thought I would love social work. And it was a really hard decision for me to quit my job and stay home. But I really knew that it was the right decision. So I ended up quitting to stay home with my kids. And it really did kind of drive me crazy. I had no idea. I didn't know that I was such a business person. I never even thought I liked business. I mean, my whole was medical field, right? I was doing the medical field. That was the only thing I knew from school. I thought business sounded boring. But when I was home, my mother-in-law was editing a book from a real estate investor. And she was helping him edit it. And she sent me the book and said, "Can you read this?" Of course, I had all this time on my hands because I had this little baby that slept all the time. I was bored to death. My mind was bored to death because it's my first child. And I have all this time when he's napping. And so I read this book. And honestly, I didn't understand hardly anything in this book. Remember vaguely like it saying, "Get the deed, get the deed, get the deed." And I'm thinking, okay, I get it. Get the deed, And then at the end of the book, it talked about tax sales and that Houston, Texas was the best place to do tax sales in. And it talked about how the county will foreclose and it forecloses out a mortgage. And that it wipes out all the other liens on the property, except for like a mechanic's lien, but we don't have to get into all that. But I was like, what? Like you can totally just go to a tax auction and buy a property and all you're paying for is the taxes. I was like, that seems way too good to be true. So I started doing more research on it. I ended up finding out all the information about tax sales in Houston. And I ended up going to my first tax sale. My husband's like, "It can't be that easy. I'm sure it's not, you need to really research. You need to really look into things." So I did a ton of research. I go to one of the tax auctions. I had three properties picked out that I'd done research on. I kid you not, I watched one go in Kingwood, Texas for $20,000. That property at the time was worth $120,000. And I drove by it. There was nothing wrong with it. It was older. It was empty even. But I just sat there. I felt like my mouth was just going to drop to the floor. It was like, what? Did I just witness this? So then I go back the next month to the tax sale. Of course, there were tons more people there. The first one, there was only one guy bidding on the property. And I realized it was 4th of July because the auctions go on the first Tuesday of every month. And it was the 4th of July, but I learned a lot. And then from there, instead of buying, so then it was actually harder than I thought it was. I mean, you had to go with the cash. These properties were going higher at the other auctions that I went to. They were going higher than that first one that I saw. And then I thought, you know what? I've got to catch these before they hit the auction because this is so competitive, right? So when I drove, this was just in my neighborhood, there were 20 empty homes. I started noticing all these homes and I'm like, I'm going to write them down. So I started writing down all these homes.
I have a question about the kids. At that time, it's not abnormal for it to take some time between the time that we're first exposed to something and then until we actually do it, which I
Okay.
think is so important when we talk about our exit strategy or having passive income. You're not going to run out and buy the first investment property. As soon as somebody tells you about real estate investing, you're not going to go buy a house the next day. Not necessarily, 99% of us won't do that.
Oh, right.
It's
Yes.
going to take time for us to evolve, to learn, to get the education that we need. So the fact that you started with one baby and then you had 2 kids later and you were
Yes.
just going to your first auction is totally normal.
Yes.
Let's go
Yes. It
there.
took a little bit of time.
Because it does take time to pick up and to learn and to understand the vernacular, the verbiage, to get up the courage to go, to even spend the time to do it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so then what do you think? You're going to think about your feet in your shoe, like how it feels, like your toes, you're probably wiggling,
Yes.
And so that's what happens when
Yes.
you start getting an education and somebody starts, I call it dropping it in your spirit, or dropping it in your energy or in your aura. You start getting these little things dropped into your spirit about real estate investing.
Exactly.
These reticular activators just start peeking up, in your brain, and you notice things you never would have noticed before. It's just intuitive. It just happens.
Yes.
So what were you
It's
then
kind of like
thinking?
when you, right. It's kind of like when you learn a new word and then you see that word everywhere, right?
Yes.
And
Yes,
then,
exactly. So
yeah.
what were you thinking? You saw the empty homes, and then
Yes.
what was the next
So
step
the
after that?
first, yeah. So the first thought was like, oh, that home's empty. And then seriously, probably 3 homes down, I'm like, oh, that home's empty. And then I went down the next street and I'm like, oh, that one's empty. So then I started getting really curious. I actually went back, wrote down, I'm like, I'm going to look these up. I'm going to figure out what's going on. So I wrote them all down. And I literally had 20 homes. This is just my neighborhood. So this is not a huge section. This is like Atascocita. It's in Humble, Texas. And it was Atasca Woods, actually. That was the exact neighborhood. And just a bunch of homes. And so I was intrigued, right? I was just thinking, what in the world? So I go home and that's when I'm like, okay, let me look these up. What can I find out? What's going on? And then, of course, I was just like, ooh. And then even from the tax sales, I learned how to look up some stuff. So it wasn't like it was brand new for me to find the owners. But 10 of those properties had different mailing addresses. So you could see the owner's name, you can see the property address, you can see, okay, they have a different mailing address. And I'm like, okay, so they're not even living in the house, which they were empty. And I knew that. But the other 10 already still showed that was their home address. So I literally sat down and wrote 10 letters to the 10 different mailing addresses that were not living in the house. And seriously, this letter, it was on a yellow, you hear of yellow letters, but this is before I even knew about yellow letters, but it was on just a yellow
notepad.
yellow notepad with the lines. It was not professional. I was actually a little embarrassed. Like, I'm like thinking, this is so unprofessional. And I honestly on there said, I was driving through the neighborhood. I live in the neighborhood. Your home looks empty. I'm not an agent. I don't even know what I would do to help you, but I'm just curious what is going on with the house. Why is it empty? Maybe I can help. Maybe I can't. I don't know. And I put my phone number and my name. And I got a call, the first call I got back on those 10 letters. She literally said to me, you can have the house for $1,000. I'll sign it over to you. Give me $1,000 and it's yours.
What?
Well, yes. And you should have seen me when I got the call. I'm like in the van with my kids. The kids are all making noise. And I literally step outside because I'm like, Kyle, this is my letters. They're calling me. So I step outside, shut the door so it's quiet in a parking lot. And I'm like jumping up and down, like, look, I got a call. But no, she literally said, you can have the house for $1,000. I was just in my mind thinking, is this possible? Can I do that?
Yeah. And it's the
so
how,
that's when I started
right?
going,
It's not that you
yes.
can't do it. It's like, how can I get this done?
Yes. It changed from not knowing anything and really kind of being vulnerable and scared to, oh, wow, this could actually happen. Like, how can I make this happen? And what if we just make her payments for her? And he said, are you crazy? How are we going to make our house payment? We had our first home that we'd ever bought. We'd been in there for 4 years. And I said, well, let's rent out our house and then we'll move into hers. And the money we make off of the rent from ours will cover her payment, because our payment at the time was only $1,100 a month. And the new house payment was $1,500 a month. I literally put a sign. He's like, well, only if you get it rented first are we going to move into this. Like, I'm so scared I'm even saying this, but let's do it, you know?
Yeah,
So
and this was before he had a license. So at this point, your husband was not a realtor. Okay.
Yes, he just got his license like 3 months ago. Like he just barely, this is like 10 years later after we've been doing this for 10 years.
Gotcha.
He just got his license.
Okay.
So I put a sign in the yard. I literally went to Lowe's or Home Depot. I think it was Lowe's. Got one of those signs that just say, you know, just put for rent. I think I even hand wrote for rent, and then just put my phone number. I literally had someone to rent within a week. I had calls like immediately, someone to rent within a week. And I looked at my husband, I said, so looks like we're going. And he's just like, oh my gosh. Right. So we do. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, I get the deed. So I went to the home documents that we purchased, our first home. I found the deed. I copied the deed, literally copied the deed. And I found on the county record their names, and I put their names in as the grantor, and I put my name in as the grantee, because I could tell that's how it was when we bought the house. And I
just copied it.
I copied it. I copied it. I knew to change the legal description. I knew to change the names. But other than that, I copied the deed from our purchase when we bought our home.
Okay. So how do you then settle up? Because where I get crossed up on this is the actual mortgage company. And so what happens that I've seen on the properties that I've purchased is that those loans are not assumable.
Right.
And so how do you get past the bank doing it, you know, calling the full loan due because you've now transferred the deed to someone that bank has not approved to take over that mortgage? How do you get through all of that, Cammy? I think that's like the burning question for me on all of the houses.
Luckily, I was a little bit naive at this point. Like, I didn't really know what call the loan due meant.
Yeah. And
I didn't really know it would even be a problem, crazy enough. Like, so when I got the deed, I went and filed it. I was scared to file it because I walked into the county office downtown. It's 8 stories or whatever it is. I find out where they record the deeds. I look on the thing and I can see, okay, it's the 4th floor. And when you go in there, it's like this, you're going through the airport, right? Like, it's all this security. You have to put everything in the book. And I'm like, whoa, this is kind of intimidating. But I get up to the 4th floor. I've got my little deed there, and I had them notarized. And then there was all these business people with their stacks of documents to file. Like, you can tell they're like lawyers and all that, right? And I walk up there with my little paper and I hand it to them, and they look at it for a while. Those minutes felt like hours, right? And I'm just standing there, and they stamped it and they said, well, do you want a copy? And I really felt like I was robbing the bank. I really did. I was like, sure, I'll have a copy. So I walk out, my husband's down with the kids in the car. I know. And there was a part of me that thought maybe I was doing something not legal. And I go down to the car. My husband's waiting there with the kids because he just so I didn't have to park. He just like dropped me off. And I go out and I said, they took the deed. And he's like, well, get in the car. Let's go, you know? So that was how we did that. And then I did get authorization to talk on her loan. I got just third-party authorization. Yes. And I was able to talk to the loan. We were able to pay the loan that way. From there, she ended up taking an insurance check. So I realized when I got all the breakdown of the loan, when I talked to the bank, she was paying an insurance policy that was like $5,000 for the year. And I got an insurance policy that was like $2,000, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, because she took a check for $3,000. So of course, I don't know this, right? So I'm changing the insurance. I went through this process to get on the phone with the insurance, and all I had was authorization for the loans. From there, I learned to get like a power of attorney so that I can talk to the loan and to the insurance and to the HOA, right? And then, so I just got better at it as I went, the more I learned from this. Yeah, she took the check and cashed the insurance check because it's written in her name. And so then I learned from there to change the mailing addresses for everything, change the mailing address for the mortgage company, change the mailing address for the insurance, like all that. And then we ended up refinancing the home after a year because my husband thought a police officer was literally going to knock on our door any day. So, and he kept thinking like we were going to get something in the mail or we were going to be in trouble. And so we ended up refinancing because he was nervous. And then from there, I learned, wow, we just got our second home with no down payment. We were able to refinance because we already owned the home. We were able to rent out our other one. We rented our other one out for $1,500 a month. And our new house payment is $1,500 a month. So we're literally paying. And actually, because I got the insurance down, I got the payment down to $1,400 a month.
Yeah.
Right. Because I got a lower insurance. So we're literally making $100 a month.
Yeah.
Every month. Right. And we have 2 homes. Right.
Yeah. So Cammy, I want to talk or I want to unpack some of what you said because this is all so good. The reason why it's legal is because the owner of the property, who was your friend, your church friend, she owned the property and she had a mortgage with the bank, but she was the property owner. As a property owner, you can deed if you own 100% of the property, or if there's more than one property owner, if all of the owners agree to deed that property to someone else in the United States, you can do that for no money. I mean, you don't have to. There are filing fees. There are things that you can pay. You can sell your property for $1. You can do whatever you want in the US of A. You can leave your property to your cat, whatever you want. If you own the property, you can do what you want. So it is completely legal for someone to deed you their property. Yes. So there was no surprise there.
Right.
The shocker for me is that her mortgage company allowed you to take over the payment. So I'm still stuck on that due upon that clause that says that it's, all the entire amount is due. So did they qualify you, or when you took over her payments, did they ask you for any, like your Social Security? Did they pull your credit? Was there any approval process?
No. And that was the beauty of this whole thing. Is that I literally just said, hey, I'm going to start making these payments. And the bank didn't care. They didn't care who made the payment. Right. Of course, I was like, wow, I didn't qualify. I didn't have to put any money down. I just started making these payments. I did go put money into the house because it was a mess because she was going through a divorce. So when I tell people about this now, they'll say, wait a minute, like, how can she deed you the house when there's this loan owed? But it's not like a car. Like a car, you don't get the title to the property or title to the car until you pay off the loan. A house, you get title up front at the title company. You get that deed. And then the bank is a lien against the property.
That is correct.
And that's why the bank has to come foreclose to get ownership back when you get behind on your payments. They can't just come take the property because the person that is on the loan owns the property. So that's the difference. And sometimes people get confused with that. And then what I did learn is I did go to an investor group after this and told another investor, hey, this is what I did. And he looked at me and he said, that's illegal. You can't do that. You're gonna get in trouble. So then I did kind of freak out a little bit. I was like, oh no, I did something illegal. But then I went and did the research myself. I went and looked up the loan document on the property. And it specifically states in there that if you sign it over, that you can put it in a trust. So my first 10 properties, I had them deeded just directly to me. But now what I'll do is it's an exception to the due on sale clause. So basically the bank can come back and say, you know what, you don't own this property, or you're not on the loan for this property, but you own it. The bank legally can come back and say, we're calling the loan due. And that's what that due on sale clause is, meaning that they can say, you need to go get a new loan, or you need to get the loan in your name, or you need to, and there's lots of ways you can do that. That's actually not so scary. If you already own the property, you can always refinance. You can always sell the house, right? You can there's options, but most people are so scared of it, they just never do it.
That's me. I'm so scared of it. Like I'm just so scared of it. Like, but now that you're saying it, I'm like, oh, it makes sense because the deed, it's been deeded to you. If the deed is recorded, you own the property.
Yes.
So,
and if you're okay taking over a lien, see, most people, you have to go through the title company because the title company is going to make you pay off the lien. You're going to have to get a new loan. But if you don't go through a title company, you just take whatever liens are on the property, which can be kind of scary because what if there's IRS liens? What if there's child support liens? What if there's all these other liens? But after doing this for a while, I realized I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to take the liens with it because I don't ever have to pay this loan off if I don't want to. I can just keep renting it in the future, right? So then it's just like this whole it's a different mentality. It's a different perspective, I guess you would say.
Yeah. So tell me about the trust. You were saying about holding the properties in a trust now. Is that how you do it today instead of
now I do that? Yes. Now I do that today because I have learned that due on sale clause, there is an exception to the due on sale clause if the property is transferred to a trust. So the bank actually accepts transferring a deed to somebody, to a new owner, or transfer of title if it's into a trust. And the reason they do that is because the property owner could put it into a trust and they could still be on the trust documents. Well, the beauty about a trust is the trust documents never get filed with the county. The deed that shows the trust name is filed in the county records, but the trust document stays at home in your filing cabinet and it is private. So no one really knows who's on that trust document.
Gotcha. Which is And amazing. Is it a different trust for each property or
That's what I do. Yes. I create a land trust and I literally just put the name of the street. That's the name of my trust. So if it's on Brazos Bend, my trust name is Brazos Bend Trust. If it's on Stone Gables, it's Stone Gables Trust, right? Like I just name it the name of the property. And then, and I do one trust for every property. It's a 6-page document. I just change the name of the trust and change the address. And it's that simple. Now I've got a trust made.
Gotcha. So, and do the trust have to be filed somewhere with someone? Just the trust itself? Does it have to be filed with an attorney or a CPA?
No, they really don't have to be. You can, if you want to start showing trust entities on tax returns and all that, you can file them and register them. But I don't. I keep mine as just paper, like just keep them in a filing cabinet. And then I will have my LLC be the beneficiary. So all of the money and the tax reporting purposes, I run it all through my LLC. The trust is like a pass through and I report everything on my LLC.
Gotcha. So I want to pause there to say, Camille and I are not CPAs. We're not attorneys.
True.
We are not any type of person that's legally giving advice here. So ladies, I just want to pause there and say this. As you're listening to the podcast, just keep in mind, you need to do your own due diligence always.
Yes.
The other thing is that Camille and I are both in Houston, Texas. So what flies in Houston may not fly in your state, your county, or your municipality. You've got to do your due diligence and make sure the things that we're talking about doing, they work in Harris County, Texas, or Montgomery County, Texas. That does not mean that they are going to work where you live. So please do your own due diligence before you get, knee deep into trying to get these properties. And then you come back and be like, Renee and Cammy told me I could just get a deed. Now I can't.
Yes.
So just make sure
we are sharing.
Yeah. So it's great information though, Cammy. So how do you end up with 40? Now I know you currently have 40 of these. How do you end up with 40 of them? How are you sourcing your deals?
Yes. I've actually bought more. I've taken over way more deeds than that. I've probably done like 250 where I've went and got a deed.
Wow.
Yes. Some of them listing service, and I get the list 3 to 6 weeks before the property forecloses. Mm-hmm. And it is a subscription, but it's totally worth it because it's your most accurate foreclosure website for Houston. And then from there, before that, I was trying to find people behind on their HOA, or I was trying to find them empty or behind on their taxes, right? I was looking for all these things. But then the easiest thing, the least amount of time and effort on my part was just to get that foreclosure list. And then Then I would drive the foreclosure list,
Mhm.
and all the ones that were empty, I would track them down. Because the bank hadn't taken it yet. They had maybe 2 weeks left before the bank was just it was gonna be completely gone. And so then I was tracking them down. I was finding them on LinkedIn, finding them on Facebook.
Yeah.
Then I started paying for a people search, which was really expensive, but it was totally worth it because then I was able to just get them on the cell phone and say, hey. And most of them would be like, oh, how did you get me? This is so freaky. Like, my cell phone number. Now, basically, I got them all from 2010 to 2015, I already had 30.
Yeah. Wow.
And then, yes. And so in 5 years, I got 30 properties. I got actually way more than that, right? I sent 60 to the attorneys. And then, but I held on to those 30. And I got so many so fast that's when I kind of just stopped at 30 because then it was hard for me to keep up with them all.
Yeah.
Managing them.
Are these cash flowing properties that you are leasing out?
Yes. So I got them. Most of these people that I found, they had done loan modifications, so they had been behind, and then the bank worked with them, and they rolled all the back payments into the end of the loan, and then they had gotten behind again. By the time I saw it, they were on their second round of being behind, and so their interest rate was like 2% because the bank's like, hey, we're going to put a 2% interest rate on this. We're going to roll all these payments, and but yeah, they're all cash flowing because I can rent them all for at least $300 to $500 more than what the mortgage payment is. Yeah. So they're all in great shape. Like when I got them, they were all newer, nicer homes that were in nice neighborhoods, great schools. And little did I know that those are the best landlord properties you could ever get because you're not dealing with people that you're chasing payments from. These are families that want nice schools, nice neighborhoods. They pay. Yeah. So I don't have to just be like, where's your payment? Where's your payment? And everybody pays. And I'm just like, as a landlord, I've got like the best properties I could ever have.
Most of these properties were purchased between 2010 and 2015. Are you telling me that I can still do this today? Right. Like there are still properties that are in pre-foreclosure. So this model still works?
Yes. So I just got one in May. Of course, they're harder to find because the market's higher and people can sell. And they put a foreclosure ban on all the foreclosures, right? So they stopped everything. But I did get one in May. It was actually her first home. She ended up getting married and has another home, and she was renting out this other property. So during COVID, she got behind on the payment. Even though the renter was paying her, she got behind because her husband ended up dying. So anyway, people still get in situations no matter what. Like my thing is to help people and make it good for everybody involved. But you can still get these. You definitely can. People who are getting divorced. I just got one brand new home. The couple just wanted to split different directions. They couldn't sell it. Well, they tried to sell it at the title company. And they were coming to the closing with $3,000. And then the buyer wasn't able to get qualified for the loan to buy it. Yeah. So then the title company came to me and she's like, hey, I know you do these and maybe you can save this couple because they're going to start just letting it get behind because they've already left the house. Yeah. So I basically stepped into that one. They weren't even behind yet. They were almost behind. So I basically said, I will step in, I'll make these payments and you guys can just go your separate ways. And so I basically put no money to bring that one current or anything, just no money out of my own pocket. And then I just turned and got a renter right in and started covering all the payments. So it still happens. It's harder to find, but no, it works.
Yes. I wanted to give you the compliment to just say, you are brave and courageous and wildly creative to be able to do this on such a large scale. I'm always floored by the fearlessness of women and our ability to create wealth and to do whatever it is that we need to do. Honey, we will figure it out.
Yes.
And Cammy, that's what you did with this. You figured it out.
Thank you.
Yes. And I wanted to also let the audience know that you and I have some great things coming up that we're going to be doing together in the future. So the audience will be hearing a lot more from Camille Davis. We're going to start working on some real estate investing podcast episodes coming up here in the next few weeks. Audience, you're going to be hearing a lot more from Camille Davis.
Woo! Both of us. You're powerhouse women.
Yes.
We're going to do this together.
Absolutely. So if the audience
That's
wants
right.
to reach you, Cammy, how do we get in touch with you to learn more about Subject to and how to do what you're doing?
Right. I think the best place to get me is my Facebook page. I did have a website for quite a while. And honestly, I'm tracking down so many people that I didn't really need the website anymore. I was finding them. So it's just my main Facebook page, Camille Davis. I am on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram also. So, but from Facebook, you'll be able to find me on those other places. So
Great. So Camille Andrus Davis. That's how we find you. And Andrus, Andrus.
Yes, that is my maiden name. It's just a different last name.
Gotcha. So Camille Andrus Davis on Facebook. And ladies, you will be hearing a lot more from Cammy coming up. And that is it for us for today. Cammy, thank you so much for being on the show. I sincerely appreciate your time. This was so fun.
You're wonderful. Sorry if I went way too off on all kinds of things, but there's so much.
No, it's great. It's great to have all the information. And so we're going to make sure that our ladies can get in touch with you if they're interested in doing this. And then you will be back really soon.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
That's all for this episode. Come back soon for more tools, resources, and great stories from successful women entrepreneurs. We believe you absolutely can build a business you love and have passive income. Until next time, thank you for listening.